I'm not very observant. I was waiting for RL. RL's not here. Sorry about that. My name is Alex Taylor, and I'm a licensed prayer practitioner here. And I want to welcome each one of you today. And let's take a moment to go within. If it's comfortable, close your eyes. And just take a few moments in silence, breathing in this brand new day, this brand new opportunity for life. And I give thanks for this service. I give thanks for Light on the Mountains and each one of you here today. I know that hearts are opened, minds are expanded, spirits and souls are deepened. I give thanks for the beautiful music this morning, Reverend John's message. I give thanks for all the live streamers that are able to watch the service throughout the week or the month or the year. What an opportunity. And I know that this day is blossoming and blooming for each one of us, and that it is truly a gift. As together we say, and so it is. So for those of you who were here last week, we had a little homework assignment, which I won't go into too much, but all of a sudden I woke up Thursday and I thought, well, I haven't really dealt with this, and it had to do with, again, my interpretation, forgiveness, atonement, at-one-ment, and I had something on my mind and a person on my mind, but I was like, well, I don't really think that I need to say anything. I really think he needs to say something. And, you know, it's the silliest thing, and I won't go into details. It's been like a year and a half. This person has been a brother to me since freshman year, like first day freshman year in college. And really it has to do with something like having a dinner a year and a half ago, and I told him he didn't need to order an extra dessert. That is honestly where it started. So it's ridiculous. And so I'm thinking about it Thursday morning. I was like, oh gosh, I don't know. Do I send him a card? I mean, honestly, I couldn't pick the phone up. And wouldn't you know, 2 hours later, he started texting me pictures of all of us from college, the two of us. I mean, just it gives me tingles to even say it. It was so beautiful, and we really hadn't been in touch. We've maybe talked twice in the last year and a half, and we used to talk all the time. And it was just this great opportunity to just start expressing like how wonderful our friendship has been. And anyway, it was just like God, spirit, source operating in a way that I didn't think was going to happen. I thought I was going to have to like pick up the phone. And so I just was very grateful for that. And then we had a wonderful conversation on Saturday, and it feels back to normal. So I didn't actually call and say, how could I have been a better person? But it worked out for both of us. So anyway, I'm feeling pretty good about it, and I know he is too. So I am going to read something from Marianne Williamson's Illuminata, Thoughts, Prayers, and Rites of Passage. And this section is, or a little blurb is called, Clearing Up the Past. We have all made mistakes. We have all done things that we wish we had not done. We have all missed opportunities and blown more of them than we care to admit. But the universe begins a new cycle whenever we are ready. God is willing to start again. Excuse me. God is willing to start again when we are. In his eyes, we are like newborn children, and at any given moment, we can be reborn. As we atone for our errors, we are released from their effects. See the light, and your life will reflect it. Deny the light, and in your blindness, you will create chaos. When you choose to open your eyes again, the chaos shall be no more. And this is one of her prayers about clearing up the past. Dear God, please take my past and take my future. Transform them both through the miracle of your power into energies of love and love only. May I know the present as you will have me see it. May I see only you in everything and everyone, that I might be dazzled by the light, lifted up by the light, given joy by the light, and made new by the light. Release me from my past and deliver me to my future. In you I trust. Nothing else is real. In you I have faith. Nothing else has power. And so it is that I am where I belong, and I shall strive for nothing. I am at home. May I feel this and be at peace. For I would rob myself no longer through my vain imaginings and tormented thoughts. You are my life. You are here and now. Amen. And we are going to read our affirmation together, which is inside the handout inside your bulletin. And it's affirmation for September. We'll say it together. I recognize the deep connection of spirit I share with all there is. This connection is one of great joy, trust, and unconditional love.
Very special day when Jana and Paul come. Yeah, we don't even miss RL at all, do we? So, may your fast be easy. You may wonder what that is if you weren't raised in a Jewish household. I was not. So this last week and this week, we are looking at what most of us not being raised Jewish, can learn and gain from Rosh Hashanah and today, the beginning of Yom Kippur. First reminder, Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year, actually the birthday of the earth, not so much as we think of a New Year celebration. It's considered the day that the earth was born, and then a week later it is followed by Yom Kippur, which starts today at dusk and goes for 24 hours until dusk tomorrow, and it is what is called a day of atonement, or looking within, and to clean up your act before you really get into the new year. And the reason why the greeting you might give someone who is commemorating Yom Kippur, may your fast be easy, is that part of the spiritual practices, if you are a Jew today, will be at sundown to go through a 24-hour fast. And I believe the reason for fast, a lot of different spiritual paths have fasts in them. And I don't think that there's a God up there that just loves for us to miss a meal. You know, it's like, boy, if John would just skip dessert today or something, that would make it happy. I believe personally the reason to consider a fast is to lessen your attention to the outer world and focus on the inner world. And it's just a symbol, at least for me. It is a symbol of I'm doing something different. I am taking a step out of my regular life and taking some deep consideration for what I am doing in my life. Just as on Friday nights every week is the Sabbath, again, start at sundown. Of course, it's not about fasting then, it's about celebration. And I also heard this week that the Sabbath before Yom Kippur is the most significant of the year because you are readying yourself to do something amazing. So let's look at this bit. I still remember all week how Cynthia shared last week a client of hers who was getting ready for this, what we call a Day of Atonement, was just like, had a lot of anxiety around it. And just listening to Alex's story about your friend of trying to make amends, there's often we'll have an anxiety around that sort of thing. We can make it out to be something more than it actually is. That making amends or having a level of forgiveness, it brings us in touch with ourselves in a way that maybe there's some things that we have tried to brush under the rug. Like, have you noticed that ghosting is a thing these days? Like, even if you're applying for a job, and if you've gone through a couple interviews, and they've decided that you're not the one, they'll just stop contacting you. Isn't that interesting? Not like, I remember the good old days, but we're not interested anymore, so we're not contacting you anymore. And people who do that in a personal relationship, well, I don't want to date them anymore or whatever, there's so much more stress in that. Every time you go to the market, will that person I've ghosted suddenly be down the aisle? You know, I've not made a clean separation here. I've just left it under the air, up in the air. So I really believe regardless of what you want to do, that you're going to have to face just about everything at some point. That is going to come back to be looked at. But the whole point for Yom Kippur is to say that we're just going to intentionally do this. We're going to take some inventory and see what we can come up with. And I believe we can do this in a way that pulls away from that anxiety we have around the concept of forgiveness and making amends, and going from what I call going from atonement to at-one-ment. And the whole point here is to recognize the divine in places that this year you chose not to recognize it. That's really what it is. It's saying it is there. It still may be messy, but it's there anyway. And to first look at what are the different levels that we can do this. And in my blog, I wrote about this a way. We can look to atone with ourselves. We can look to atone with those in our immediate surroundings. And we can atone with the world. That's a pretty big one, but we can. So first, as we're looking to atone with ourselves, and we might first think of a level of forgiveness. It's interesting how forgiveness and atonement are cousins, but they're different. Often when we think of forgiveness, we put, in a sense, the power to the other person, don't we? It's like we, in our mind, have decided, or maybe they have done something really hurtful. And I will, quote unquote, not give them absolution. We don't have that power until they admit it. Don't we do that sometimes? I am not going to talk to them till I get that phone call. And I want them to grovel a little bit. I want them to earn this. I want them to feel my pain. And the truth of the matter is, more often than not, they're off not feeling any pain. They're enjoying life, doing whatever, they don't even know. But what we have done in those type of interactions is that we have, in a sense, taken a power away from ourselves and made life contingent on someone else learning something in their lives. And kind of like being on the edge of, I would heal if, fill in the blank, because we all have one, that person would acknowledge that they have done me wrong in some way. But here's the real tricky thing or difficult thing about this. So if you have held on to that to a certain extent in your life, even for a few months, you have made a home for that. And you've made a home for that when you revisit it in your self-talk. How many times have we had that conversation with that same person about how bad they've been to us in our lives? Haven't we? So we have energetically made a place for that. So let's say the miracle of miracles happens and they apologize. Your work is not done because you have made a place for that hurt. And just by someone apologizing, at point, the need for healing is such more deeper at that point. So one thing that we can do in the spirit of Yom Kippur is do the healing work, or at least begin it, regardless of what the other person is doing. In other words, you are atoning with yourself. You cannot change them or what they are up to, but you can change how you react to it. So atoning with ourselves is the ultimate of spiritual self-care. To know, again, anything that happens outside of us is really beyond our control. But we can't control what's in here. And another thing I came across in one of the teachers I listened to, that you cannot see the presence of the divine in anything else until you can really see it within you. I mean, just really think about that. But sometimes when we look at that, I mean, well, that's egotistical, that's narcissistic, to think actually the presence of the divine is within me. Well, actually, it's egotistical not to. Imagine that you are the only one that doesn't have it. Isn't that egotistical? Everyone else has it, but not me. Not me, or I have only 90% kind of thing. It's like, now that's narcissistic to me. I am the one on the earth that doesn't have it. You got to see that doesn't really work out well when we kind of play this out. So making amends with yourself that even knowing that we all have flaws, we all make mistakes, we all have things that we need to make amends for, but that doesn't change our connection to the divine of who we are as spiritual beings. That's where healing begins. It doesn't mean that what we have done has taken place in perfection, but it means that we come from perfection. So if in this Yom Kippur, if you just got that idea, I mean, you really got it, amazing things would happen in your life. That anytime something is in disarray, if you didn't go to, it must be me. There must be something wrong with me. And well, maybe you did something unkind, but there's nothing, quote unquote, wrong with you. So let's expand a little bit. Making amends with others. And isn't that, just even from what Alex said, we just get kind of like, who makes the call? How do I do this? It's not easy sometimes. It starts with admitting that maybe I have been unkind. But I've also found out that in any instance that I have been unkind or not shown up as my best self, it often was a group experience. We often, as a group, showed up as unkind and not our best selves. So part of this is to really look at, how did I get there? What was a larger thing in my belief system that led me to, in this instance or any other instance, to not show up as my best self? Does anyone watch the Apple cable show called Morning Show?
Yes.
Oh my God. We got to talk about the last episode.
Well, I haven't watched this season
Oh.
yet. We're going to watch.
Oh my God. So go like this, go blah, 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 because I'm going to tell a little bit. You're going to be a while. So I'm going to tell you about it with not telling you about it. So there was an interaction with two characters. And this is all about not only making amends, but then try to challenge yourself to go further with it. So one of the on-air talent, so morning show was, like those like little shows on the morning, like they'll have real news, but then they'll like make muffins and stuff, those, those kind of shows. And so not hard news, but it's like, oh, and now, just like Mackenzie is making dog biscuits in the other room. That's the kids program today. Anyway, so there was one of the online talents, we'll call it, is a younger black woman. Does really well in the show. And there is another character who is one of the executives in, I think in the show or the larger network, an older white woman who made in emails some very racist comments about this woman, and it got leaked out. And this was like a big thing, like even on the news, like, oh, this person said this. So they brought the two together. They were going to have the two on air to talk about it. And just as a viewer, I was like a mess leading up to this. No, I really was, for one, on two levels. One, like, could you imagine trying to make amends on national TV? But the other two thing, I was like, I'm not an actor, but I thought, how are these two actresses going to do this? And thinking, it could go wrong and trite in so many ways. You know what I mean? It could. Could you? I mean, just think of that scenario. Couldn't it go like mediocre really quick?
It needed to be powerful.
And so I was like blown away with this. But basically, the older woman, the white woman, did, I believe, the character sincerely want to make amends and apologize. But this was the genius in the performance. There was nothing in that character who did enough introspection to look at what was in the, say, 60, 70 years leading up to that moment that I felt I had permission to do that. I mean, think of that. And so the character was kind of left like, but I apologized, but there was something lacking. And so that was the genius of the performance, in my opinion, that the character could sincerely give an apology, but yet it didn't have the breadth of what it needed to be. So we can all learn from that. It's like, yeah, if I just apologize for saying that terrible thing, we'll be good. And sometimes it is. But you think again, if I truly did something unkind, and I think of myself as a generally kind person, what activities, beliefs, and years were in the making that at that moment where I had a choice, that I made a choice that was not the best choice? So for me, that is what the Day of Atonement is about. It's not just, okay, yes, I said a couple things here and we'll apologize and get through it. But the whole point of having a 24-hour period in fasting is to be with that type of deep question. How did I live my life up to that point that I gave myself permission to do that which I need to make amends for? That's a really deep question. It really is. And sometimes we do some things offhand that maybe with no real history, and maybe I was just having a blood sugar moment or something. But often there is something leading up to that. There is a deeper fear that may have nothing to do with that person even, and they just happen to be there unwittingly to take, kind of the brunt of what you were feeling and going through. So to me, that is the power of seeking atonement and amends in our most immediate. It is mirrors of what we have experienced and come to believe and what we think is not only possible, but what we should be up to. So that's something to think about this next week. With anything that it's not about the unkind act or thing that you need to apologize for, what was the lead-in? That's where the learning in. What was the lead-in? And so let's just briefly go to the small subject of atonement with the world. That's a big subject, isn't it? So as I have said many times over the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years, in different ways, we are in one of the largest atonement opportunities that our civilization has had, I think, in recorded history. That's a big statement, isn't it? How do I know that? Because we are at each other's throats in a way that I can't remember us being at each other's throats. That we not only disagree with people, but we think they are inherently bad people for having an opinion that's different than me. Don't we? And it's one of the, I hate to use the argument that it's on all sides, but it kind of is. We see each other as aliens on a certain level. And we think that if we can just bring our opinion forward, that it'll drown that out and that peace will prevail. That really doesn't. So we are at an atonement moment. And so how do we deal with that? What influence do we each have on the world stage here in our little town up in the mountains here? Well, you atone and make at-one-ment with your connection to it, with your own thoughts. That there is a spiritual practice that we have on one of the weeks with our 10-week foundation of spiritual principles, that it's a very simple process and people are really challenged by it. I mean, if you really do this. And we do it in class, and we also have a version of it that goes over 5 days that's part of homework. And a lot of people ditch the homework because it's too difficult. And I'm not judging anyone. It's that hard stuff where you're going up against, in fact, the Brill lesson is like, boy, I didn't know I was carrying this. So you did not, quote unquote, fail because you were not able to complete the 5 days. You actually succeeded because you saw how deep of a belief that you have in this area. So that's really the win here. So the thing is, on the 5-day version I'll give you, and then we do a short version in the class afterwards, is that in your quiet time meditation, you see yourself surrounded with love and light and all things that are good and the divine and spirit, however you see that. And the first couple days in this bubble of just unconditional love, you metaphorically bring someone in that you love. your best friend, someone from your family, or just someone that you look forward to spending your time with. And it is so easy to bring that person in. He says, I love you. You are someone that's one of my life mates here. Let's just love it up in this bubble of love here. You probably know where I'm going with this, don't you? Like about day 4 or 5, we start to bring someone in we would prefer not to be there. Are you feeling the resistance already? Bring someone to mind who you, when it comes on the TV, you throw a shoe at the TV.
Yeah.
Imagine that you are going to bring that person, and maybe you've never even met them in person, but they're a public figure, and you're going to have this great thing, and you just brought in grandma, and now you're going to bring them in. Are you sweating already? So the thing is, we are not bringing our judgment about what they're doing in the world, and let's say there's someone that's creating great mayhem in the world. For just argument's sake. You're not welcoming in that behavior. What we are is recognizing the divine where we have not recognized it existing. We are bringing in that essence of that person who is perfect, whole, and complete, and one with spirit and the divine on all levels, even though our judgment may be that they are acting badly. So, we're not going to do this now, but just imagine yourself if you're going to have the courage to do this sometime this week. Imagine at first how difficult energetically it's like, it's almost like you're having the holidays and there's always those 2 people in your family you don't want to have over, and they drive up and you go, they're here. Prayer didn't work. I prayed for them to have a flat tire in Shoshone. So imagine just even, okay, and then imagine that you work with this and you get them to the love bubble like just here, like, okay, enough. And finally, after a few days, you can energetically let them in with grandma. I'm feeling like stressed out already. I am. I'm genuinely feeling stressed out. It's like, really? Have to do that? Yes, you do. So to make atonement with the world is to see the power and presence of the divine everywhere, even in places where we would judge it as being in mayhem. That everything that is coming up in the world right now is to bring it up for us to bring healing to it. We can't bring healing to it unless we're willing to bring it closer to us. That doesn't mean that you still don't just go, oh, well, I don't have to vote. I don't have to have an opinion how things should be. It's all love and God, and it is. And we, in the physical world, we do have to make decisions. But we will make better decisions if it's not thinking that someone else is inherently devoid of the divine. Kind of a tightrope, isn't it? To fully accept, unconditionally love and accept, and still have an opinion that their behavior is probably not the best for us as a world. Not easy, is it? Not easy at all. In fact, there's 8 billion people. If 500 million of us did that today, with all sincerity, the world would change today. Because positive thought is more powerful than dispersed or negative thought. So we each have great power in making the world a better place. And in this, you're not judging. You're not putting in your invoice, the world would be better if these 10 things would be done. You're simply, in making atonement with the world, is challenging yourself to see the divine in places you have to this point decided that it doesn't exist. And it's not easy. But so what is this? My notes are still up here. Found this great quote, as I'm going to close here today, by Sarah Debbie Gutfreund. She says, "Think of Yom Kippur as a lookout on top of the mountain that you have been climbing all year. See your days and the moments spread out before you. Be willing to look now at the big picture of your life, your ultimate goals, your beliefs. See each person in your life as part of that picture. What lesson have they taught you, even if you had to learn it through pain? What message is God sending you by putting this person in your life? So can you look at the big picture? You know, when I read this morning, I thought of, isn't it amazing? Have you all been on the gondola at some point in your existence here? Isn't it amazing to be up there and ride down? And you see this great expanse of where we live, and I'm always in a sense of awe. But you can also look at downtown Ketchum and go, that's where I got that bad meal. That's where that tourist cut me off. So you can always go to the bad place. And not to say that those things don't need to be dealt with. But always go back into the infinite. Think of yourself, I mean, it never gets old with me to be on the gondola coming down. Never gets old. So, may your fast be easy. Let's just take this within. So let us give thanks here together for this amazing place, for this amazing experience that we have as a spiritual community. And let's give thanks for our willingness to look beyond our borders, to see the presence of Spirit, of the divine, of God in all things, even in places that are uncomfortable. And the atonement we seek today, and the at-one-ment we seek today and accept, is simply that, seeing the divine where I had previously judged it does not exist. So we take that message with us today. We see the larger, greater view from where we are. And in this sense of awe and this greater view, we give thanks. And as we give thanks, in this completion of understanding, we let this idea and this affirmation go. We release it. And as we release it into the universe, into the heart and mind of spirit, we know that it is perfection. And so it is.